Hi, y'all. I'm John. If you don't know me, I'm a pastor on Chi Alpha's staff team, and I'm married to a beautiful woman named Molly. She is my best friend, the love of my life, and I couldn't really introduce myself without introducing her. But my role on staff is on-campus outreach and evangelism, so I thought it'd be really fitting to talk to you guys about evangelism right now. If you don't know, we are in a series called Rhythms, Practicing the Way of Jesus. Spiritual disciplines are habits or rhythms that we practice in order to grow our faith. They're not something we do to make God love us more. They're something that we do in order to be more like Jesus and model our lives after Him. They're time-tested practices that the church has used over years, and if you start practicing them, it's our belief that your faith will grow tremendously. So the discipline I'm talking about tonight, evangelism, I feel like it's really a combination of efforts from all the other disciplines that I've talked about. So when I was younger, there was this cartoon that I used to watch, really cheesy show called Captain Planet, okay? In Captain Planet, there's 5 characters. Everyone has a ring, and when you put the rings together, their powers that come from the ring all combine to make one big superpower. So I really think that some of these other disciplines, as corny as that analogy is, can come together and can really help you in your effort to evangelize to people. So just as a little recap, reading scripture can help you know what you're talking about when you're sharing Jesus. Prayer, fasting, silence, and solitude can help you draw closer to the heart of the Father. And if you know His heart more, then you can share more effectively in His name. And confession helps you to get in the right heart attitude in order to be in a good place to talk to people about Jesus. And obedience is something you need in order to actually do the thing that Jesus has called you to do. And then, guys, I know your lives are busy. I know there's a lot going on. And this is one more thing on top of that I'm going to talk about tonight. So you're going to need rest in order to recharge yourself. And Lucas just talked about that last week. Guys, this season of COVID-19 is a little weird. It's a little different. A lot of us weren't ready for it, but it's here, it's happening. And I really think with extra time you might have on your hands, this could be a really good season of prep work where you could start practicing these disciplines. And maybe by the time we get back to campus, be ready to live out your life for Jesus because of the faith that you built during this time practicing these things. And I'm not asking you, the staff team's not asking you to do every one of these disciplines for 24/7. I'm not doing every one of these disciplines 24/7. Just tomorrow when you wake up, pick a discipline, try it. The next day, pick a different discipline and try it. I think it can be as simple as that. And if something really cool happens, share it with your life group leader, or life group leaders share with the staff team what's happened. We want to hear those cool stories from you. So before I get into my Bible passage and my sermon, I just want to break down a definition of the word evangelism because I'm going to be using it a lot throughout my sermon. So I think it'd be good to define what it is. So it said in a book one time that evangelism is pre-conversion discipleship. So those are some big words. I'm going to unpack that a little bit. So conversion is the moment in which you receive Christ. You accept Christ into your life. And discipleship is just intentional mentorship towards a certain goal. And that goal is to point people closer to Jesus or have them become more like Jesus. So evangelism is just a intentional discipleship toward the first goal in a Christian's life, which is salvation. Our main passage is going to come from the Matthew tonight. It's a very well-known passage. It's said a lot in churches. It's the Great Commission. I want to unpack it, look at it maybe in a little different light, and have you guys really dig into it, because a lot of times it's just heard and received and you just go about your daily life. But I think this is a crucial verse for what I'm talking about. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to unpack it a little bit. Matthew 28:19-20 says, "Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I will be with you always to the end of the age." So the first thing you need to know about this, guys, is that this is a command from Jesus. It's not something that He's, politely asking us to do. He literally says, "Therefore go." He's telling us to go do it. And another thing, I think it's really important when you read the Bible to read it in context. So I'm going to talk about the context for a second. This is really important just to know where a passage is coming from and where in the story of the Bible it's at. So this is at the very end of Jesus' ministry. Guys, he's about to go back to heaven to be with God. And these are some of the last words he says. And I'm going to do this at the end of my sermon. I'm going to summarize the major points, the thoughts from my sermon. And I think Jesus is doing this here. It's his most important thing. It's what he wants to leave us with. It's what he wants to grab your attention, and especially grab the disciples of that time's attention right before he left. So I think we should view it as that, the most important command of Jesus, because it's one of the things he left at the end. There's other commands that are super important, but this is something he said right at the end. So I think it makes it all that more important. There's a part in this verse that I'm not going to get into tonight, where it says, make disciples of all nations. That alone, that all nations phrase, deserves a whole sermon unto itself. I don't have time to get into that, but just know that no matter where someone comes from or what language we speak, we want them to know Jesus. Honestly, if you want to talk more about it, I'd love to talk to you, but I'm not really the person that you should go talk to. There's a girl on our staff team named Madison. She has so many words about all nations. Go talk to her if you're interested in hearing more about that. So besides it being a command, I think, though that should stand alone for why we should do evangelism, I think I just want to break down a little bit why we should do this. So the first one is that you have at some point in your life experienced the love of Christ. You've been saved or received salvation from him, even when you didn't deserve that love in the first place. So 1 John 4:19 says, we love because he first loved us. And I really think that love that you've experienced, if you think back to the first time you had an experience of salvation with Jesus, just that feeling that you had is something so memorable, especially when we didn't deserve to even be there in the first place, is something that we have to use to fuel us while we're sharing, and the thing that we should want to share with people. Another thing that should motivate us for why we do it is Christ has done amazing things in our lives. I know specifically for me, and for everybody really, there's a lot of sin struggles that we could come across in our lives. For me, that big sin struggle was lust. And I know from where I was before and where I am now, God has done an amazing thing in my life and brought me out of where I was to a new place that I never thought I could be in with this struggle. And I know you guys probably have stories like that too. And those should be other stories that we want to share with people that don't know Jesus yet. They should, hear the amazing things that God was able to do in our lives. And then 3, we want to be more like Jesus. Jesus was the great evangelizer. And so if we want to be more like Jesus, we should model our lives off of his objective. His objective was to point as many people to the Father as possible. So that's what we should model our lives off of too. Another thing that could help drive us is a sense of urgency. I'm going to tell you a story right now that hopefully will help you see how urgent it is to share the gospel with people. In the 1960s, there was a dinner party one time, and there was a guy there. His name was Billy Graham, pretty famous evangelist guy. There was another guy there named John F. Kennedy, another pretty famous guy in being the president at the time. And they were at the dinner party, and they were chatting it up, and they were just, talking, and Billy Graham does what Billy Graham does and just starts sharing about Jesus with John F. Kennedy. And Kennedy had a lot of questions. He was super intrigued. It was a really, must have been a really cool conversation for Kennedy because he just kept asking questions. And so when they left the dinner party, John F. Kennedy invited Billy Graham back to the White House to talk about this more. Throughout the dinner, Billy Graham had been getting sick, and by the end, he was experiencing flu-like symptoms. And so he turned down the invitation and told him that, I'd love to continue talking about this, but we should meet up a different time. As you guys know, the President of the United States is a pretty busy man. And this particular president was never got the chance to set up a meeting with Billy Graham because a few months later he was assassinated. Now, we don't know what John F. Kennedy's walk was for those few months. We don't know if he came to know Jesus, but we do know that he died without Billy Graham having the opportunity to share the gospel with him more. And Billy Graham has been quoted in saying that he regrets that decision every day of his life. Now, he's obviously passed away now, so rest in peace, Billy. But guys, you need to know that there are dying people on our campus that are going to hell at some point if we don't share the gospel with them. This is a serious thing, guys, and you should have an urgency because of the motivation, just to show that to them before something happens. Or not even dying, they are only there for 4 years. You only get a small window with some of these people, so you should use that window effectively. I feel like a lot of you guys think the purpose for you being on campus is to get a degree, to build your resume, and to launch you into a career. But I've got a really big news blast for you. This might come as a shock, but that is not the reason you're on campus first and foremost. The reason you're on campus is the same reason that you're a Christian. And that is, going back to the text we just read, to go and make disciples of all nations. And guys, that's why you're on campus. You're on campus to make disciples. So I get that your secondary thing should be to get a degree. You're paying a lot of money for it, but you should know that your first reason for being on campus is to make disciples while you're there, because the campus is your mission field. So what are you doing to play a part in that mission field? I just want you to think about that. All right, so I've talked about what should motivate us, why we should do it. Now let me talk about how we do this. But one thing you need to know as we get into how we do this is that the call hasn't changed because of COVID-19. Even if it seems harder, or maybe you think it should be different, the call hasn't changed at all, because God hasn't changed because of COVID-19. He is steadfast and He is good, and the words in the Bible that He left behind are still good, and they haven't changed at all. That book is not something we edit when a crisis comes about. The thing that changes in a crisis is your attitude that you take during that crisis. Let me be super vulnerable with you guys. I have had a terrible attitude for a lot of this, guys. I have been grumpy. I have not acted like Christ in a lot of ways. But going back to what I talked about earlier, He loves me even when I'm not Christ-like. Even when I do stupid stuff, I get angry all the time and act frustrated, or be rude to my wife. He loves me in spite of all those things. So guys, just know that COVID hasn't changed anything, and you should still want to share the love of Christ with people in a healthy, socially distanced way. One thing you should also know when you try to evangelize to someone is that there's no such thing as failure in sharing the gospel. You have no idea what seed you might plant that God might use in the future, even if they reject you in that moment. 1 Corinthians 3:6 says, I planted, this is Paul talking, I planted the seed, Apollos watered, but God made it grow. Ultimately, God, there's no reason to stress. There's no reason to worry, because you're not the one doing the saving. You're not the one bringing the salvation. God is doing that, and you're just a part to play. Pastor Chad at Harvey at RFA Church said one time in a sermon, God has a wonderful, beautiful plan to reach the world for Christ. You are a part of that plan. If you don't engage in the plan suffers. So we don't want the plan to suffer. I don't want the plan to suffer. So here's 4 things I'm going to lay out. Just that you need to be willing to do if you're going to evangelize. Later on, I will give you some more specific practical steps to take right now, but these are just things you need to be willing to do in order to evangelize to someone. The first one is you need to make yourself available to someone. That means spending time with them. And when you spend that time with them, you need to listen to them and hear them out when they're talking to you. Really intentionally listen to them. If you don't spend any time with people, you can't make a disciple, because you're not with them, and how are they going to know what you know, or hear from you the things that you have learned from Christ if you're not spending time with them? Number 2, you need to pray for them. Guys, if you don't get on your knees and pray for the person that you want to see come to Christ, they will never come to Christ. You have to be willing to put the battle into the trenches of prayer and really be willing to submit to the Lord and ask Him to help you, because like I said before, He's the one doing the saving. It's not you. You're just a part to play. So you have to be willing to ask God for something you want to see. Number 3, you need to be willing to read the Bible with them and answer questions that come up. Guys, I know that when someone new might be reading the Bible, that a lot of questions might come up. Questions you don't know the answer to. Just because I say you need to be willing to answer questions doesn't mean you need to know all the answers. So if you don't know the answers, come to a staff person, come to your life group leader, ask the questions, or do the research to figure it out. And then number 4, be willing to share your testimony with someone. In order to share your testimony or the things that God's done in your life, you have to know your testimony. So practice your testimony and know what you're going to share with people. So, like I said before, I'm going to summarize my thoughts. So, it's time to listen up, because this is where the good stuff comes, the summary. So I've talked about what the command is. The command from Jesus is to make disciples. I've talked about why we should follow it, the motivation of love behind our reason for following the command, that it's urgent because people are going to hell every day, and how we do it. Some of the things we need to be willing to do in order to do it. So now I'm going to tell you some simple first steps to take. These are things that, might be really easy first step in your path to share the love of Christ with someone. So the first thing you should do is make a list of non-Christian friends that you have that you want to see come to know Jesus. If you don't know who you're going to try to reach, then you're never going to reach anybody. And if you say, oh, John, I don't have any non-Christian friends. Well, guess what, guys? COVID-19 is crazy. There's people in your class that are probably dealing with feelings of isolation, fear, and anxiety, and they need a Christian friend right now, even if they don't know it. So pick someone in your class and intentionally befriend them. Spend some time with them. Maybe set up a time to video call or to just call them on the phone, whatever it looks like. But just intentionally plan to pick one person on your list and spend some time with them. Another thing that might be cool, Easter's coming up on Sunday, so invite them to watch an Easter service with you, and maybe afterwards talk about it from a socially distanced, appropriate distance. Another thing, another practical step is to join the book club. Guys, Molly and I are leading this book club. I'm super excited about it. It's a virtual book club. We're going to do it. We do it over Zoom call. There should be a link probably popping up in the chat over to the side now. But the book's called Master Plan of Evangelism, and the whole book is about Jesus' method for evangelism and how we should model our method for evangelism off of his method. So it's perfect for what we're talking about. Guys, I really implore you to join the book club and to delve in more to what Jesus might be leading us if we follow his example in evangelism. The next one is write down your testimony, and then practice it after you write it down. You can't, like I said earlier, you can't share what you haven't practiced. You're going to feel awkward, you're going to mumble, but if you have it rehearsed, if you know what you want to say about what God's done in your life, it'll be much better for you. And then the last thing, guys, if you're not a Christian, that's okay. Like a lot of this was for Christians sharing with non-Christians. But if something I said, something about talking about God's love has sparked some curiosity in you in any way, please talk to me, message me after, or there's a way to request prayer in this video. Go in, request prayer. Someone would love to pray through that with you, or just share their heart for what the love of Christ has done in their lives. So I would implore you not to wait till we get back to campus in the future. I would implore you to act now if you have some sort of curiosity. So like I said, I want you guys to experience the feeling of sharing the gospel with someone, just how beautiful it is to see someone's life changed by Jesus, and to be a part of that plan. So we're going to get on a Zoom call like we always do every XA Live in a minute. But I want you to get out a piece of paper, a physical piece of paper, and write down some fears that you have in doing this. I know inevitably this could be scary for people. There's some setbacks that they're going to have. I know when I first started doing it, there were some setbacks that I had, some big fears that I needed to get over. So I want you to write them down on a piece of paper. And I said a real piece of paper because I think there's something cathartic about writing it actually down. And also it slows you down for a second, because I know you guys can type a million miles a minute in your phone now because you're millennials. So you need to slow down and really think out the fears that you have. And we'll talk about them in the Zoom call afterwards. But we're gonna listen to a song here, a song that I really think exemplifies some of the things that I've been trying to share in my sermon. And after the song, I'm gonna pray. But while the song's playing, I just really want to encourage you to listen to the lyrics, sing if you want, sing along, or just take some time to really think out some fears that you're gonna write down. And yeah, like I said, after the song, I'll pray, and then we'll transition to the Zoom call.
Out we will go, anywhere you lead us, Lord. ends of the earth. We'll carry your love, shine with your light, till the whole world knows you and lifts you high. Our eyes are set on Jesus as we obey the Great Commission. As the Father sent His only Son, Jesus, you are sending us. Jesus, you are sending us, driven by love, till all have heard. We'll carry your name to the ends of the earth. We'll carry your love, shine with your light, till the whole world knows you and lifts you high. Driven by love, till all have heard. We'll carry your name to the ends of the earth. We'll carry your love, shine with your light, till the whole world knows you and lifts you high. To a broken world around us, let us be your heart, oh God. To the unreached and forgotten, let us be your healing arms. There's a task you've laid before us, your voice we can't ignore. You should go into the nations as your final words. To a broken world around us, let us be your heart, oh God. To the unreached and forgotten, let us be your healing arms. There's a task you've laid before us, your voice we can't ignore. You should go into the nations as your final words. Driven by love, till all have heard. Carry your name to the ends of the earth. Carry your love and shine with your light, till the whole world knows you and lifts you high.
God, I really hope that the words of that song, or Holy Spirit, the words that you brought through me today, would really convict some people, that they would be motivated to share the love and the things that you've done in their life with people around them. I pray that you put specific people on our students' hearts, that they would feel motivated to reach out to those people, and I pray that they would be motivated to also lift them up in prayer, and to really spend intentional time getting to know those people, and really having a strong desire for them to come to know Jesus, Lord. I just thank you so much for what you're going to do, and I can't wait to hear the testimonies that come out of this, even in the midst of a global pandemic. I know that you're still working, and I know that you're going to make some amazing things happen. So Lord, go with us and be with us, and take away our fear, and just help us to love big and love well the people around us in this world, God. It's in your name we pray. Amen.